All right, here we go with another BYOG expert session and journey. Oh man, I'm so happy to have Jane Hogan on with me. She's just a ray of light. I've had a few interactions with her, and after I spoke with her last time, I'm like, all right, I have to have you on my Be Your Own or in my Be Your Own Guarantee community because her story is, one of inspiration, but one of also education, and that's what I want to bridge those two. And just a little bit about her. I what really resonated with me about her is like her tagline. She's the wellness engineer. I love that. She combines and blends science and spirituality using mind, body, and breath, which sounds familiar, right? With what we teach inside of BYOG in our community. And before I even hit record, I told Jane, I'm like, all right, I'm going to limit my talking, especially this first part, because I sometimes get too much into her story or the story of my guest. And I want them to share it. I want you to feel what they went through and she went through and how she, got rid of those, we're all still working on it, but was able to break free and release from chronic pain for one, but then also these self-imposed beliefs and limiting beliefs that a lot of us have, we all have, and we have them because they're there to protect us. But one thing I will share before she shares this is, she was an engineer. That's where this wellness engineer moniker came from. For 30 years, she has had a career in engineering and totally shifted that. But I'm going to leave that to you, Jane. I want you to explain it. And obviously, I'll have little tidbits and little insights along the way too. But Jane, welcome. And I can't wait for you to share your story of where you are now versus where you came from. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Ryan. What a great introduction. I love it. I'm so grateful to be here and talk with and inspire, hopefully inspire your audience because um, I love the whole idea of being your own guarantee and not relying on anyone else because we are our own guarantee, right? So to tell you a little bit about how an engineer switched around and became the wellness engineer. It started really in 2016. I just come through like a really stressful year, the most stressful year of my life. My mother had died suddenly, and I had to deal with the entire contents of the house they had been in for 50 years with all the stuff and my siblings. And as anyone would know, there's a lot of stress associated with that, sadness and stress. Hadn't been sleeping and so on. So I was working through all of that and was getting the house ready for sale. And I started getting like really intense pain. I got like intense pain in my shoulder and I had to go in a sling. Like this had never happened before. I'd had a rotator cuff issue before, but and then the next day it was the other shoulder. And then it was migrating all around my body, my hands, my feet, my knees. And I just thought it's really weird. I just thought I'm working too hard. I am a little bit stressed. I got to get this house sold and then everything's going to be fine. And it wasn't fine. The house sold really quickly. I had dealt with everything, but I got worse. So I thought I just need a break from work. And so I took some time off and I continued to get worse. So much so, Brian, I had like huge balls of inflammation on my knees. I could hardly walk. And like walking on my feet felt like I was walking on swords. It was very, very painful. And my hands, no grip strength. I couldn't make a fist. I couldn't squeeze like shampoo out of the bottle. Like talk about basic things. I get stuck in the bathroom because I couldn't turn the door handle. And anyway, at the time, there was nothing showing up in my blood work. But my doctor, my family doctor, I'm really, really fortunate. She made an appointment for me to see a rheumatologist. And I live in Newfoundland in Canada. And here it takes months to get into the rheumatologist. So she said, while we're waiting, sometimes food can be related to joint pain. And I thought, oh, that's crazy. but I was in so much pain. I was really kind of desperate, actually. And so she told me gluten and dairy were the two common triggers. So I just said, okay, all right, I picked a day and I said, I'm going to cut them out cold turkey. And I did. And I wasn't out of pain, but within about 5 days, I had significantly less pain. So I was like, what? I just felt okay. I had felt hopeless before because I was feeling like my future, and I was Googling, of course, and I knew this was sounding like rheumatoid arthritis, and I knew what the prognosis was, and it wasn't good. Just you continue to get worse. Eventually, you're in a wheelchair. And I felt like I was letting everybody down. I felt like I was letting my husband down. Our freedom years were coming up. I felt like I was letting my children, my future grandchildren down, and me down. And I had like this moment where at my worst, I was just like literally lying down crying and said, my life is not meant to turn out like this. I am going to figure this out and I'm not going to stop until I do. And then I kind of got like a download said, and you're going to share this with people. So that's why I'm doing what I'm doing. But, you know, in the meantime, I had a long way to go because I was at rock bottom then. And so I was trying the food. And then I was like, food is medicine. So I started researching all about food. I had no clue what I was doing. But then I found the autoimmune protocol, paleo, and that helped. And then I discovered functional medicine and I started reading some books by doctors. One key one was by Dr. Amy Myers, The Autoimmune Solution. So I read that book and I was like, okay, figuring stuff out. And then I said, okay, I need to find a practitioner. Actually, I went to my family doctor and I said, could you test me for this, that, and that? And she said, we can't test that in our system. She said, our system is letting you down. You need to see a naturopath. And I mean, for a conventional doctor to say that is pretty awesome. I'm so grateful to her. So I did. And I figured out along the way, okay, I had a bacterial infection. I had to deal with that. And I was, you know, adding some supplements and focusing on sleep and all these other things. And it was taking me, I was getting a little bit better and I was graphing and charting like an engineer would do. I like literally drew graphs of how things are changing. And it did take me so far. And then I decided I wanted to learn more. So I found out about functional medicine health coaching. And I thought, okay, at that point I was, you know, 50 years old. And I thought, I'm not going back to school for 5 years, but this was online and I could do it in a year. And so I thought, I'm going to do that. At least I'm learning something for me and maybe I'll be able to help other people as well. But I really had no big plans. So I started doing it. And then after I finished, I was still working for a little while as an engineer. And then I decided I started taking on some clients, and it was so fulfilling to help people. And along the way, I got better too. But it was so fulfilling to help people that I just knew that I couldn't stay with my engineering career. And I came to realize a lot of other stuff, Ryan, along the way that it wasn't just this year of stress. That was a tipping point. It was a lifetime of people pleasing, of being a perfectionist, of trying to do it all, trying to be the best mother, the best friend, the best wife, all of these things, and the best daughter. I mean, my father was an engineer. Why do you think I went into engineering? Trying to be a good daughter, right? So there's all these things. I did love my engineering career, but I really came to realize that this was a big mindset shift that I had to do. And so now I know that's really like all the food, everything else is important, but you have to have that mindset shift. And so that was key. So that's getting a little bit long. I'll let you interject now and see what else you want to talk about.
No, that's brilliant. That's exactly what I wanted. It's perfect. A lot of the points that we hit on here, you know, in the community is like just the simple inconsistency. Well, what you just ended with there is that mindset shift. And, you know, mindset sometimes can be this woo-woo esoteric type thing that people don't really understand how our mindset goes into a situation or can be influenced by a situation and how that directs our action and our behaviors, which lead to our habits. Like you said, with our food, yes, food is important, but what is going to help us to eat the healthy, nourishing food for our body, not just for a day, but consistently.
Right.
That's the key. How do we make it simple and sustainable and consistent, but while not getting bored with it?
Exactly.
And you feeling what you felt just even in that 5 days where in 2016, when you cut out the gluten and you cut out the dairy, those common offenders, and then that spurred you like, okay, there is something to this. So, you know, it's, I just think about, it's funny who shows up in our lives to help us out
Yeah.
when we need it or when we're ready for it. Cause I mean, most people know my story of when I was 13 years old having migraine headaches. And, I went to the second one I ever had, I went to my school secretary at the school I was at and asked her for some Tylenol. And she said, I can't give that to you. Sounds like you have a pinched nerve. You should go see a chiropractor. And with you, it's almost helpful that you couldn't get to see the rheumatologist for a
Hmm.
while
Yeah.
because of the system, which is, man, that's great. It led you towards other avenues. And then
Really.
your doctor down the road said, you know what? I can't order those tests that, you wanted as you did your research, go see a naturopath. It's amazing how, and as long as we are clear and open up to those opportunities that,
Mhm.
you know what, we don't know everything. Yeah. So anyway, I'm rambling, of course, but there's some things I wrote down here, common things that people say that you said to yourself right back in the beginning, like you had a stressful year, work, life, kids, whatever. And you think, okay, once I sell this house, once this situation is over, I'll be fine.
Right.
It wasn't. Okay. Right shoulder. Okay. That once that's gone, it'll be fine. Nope. It turned into other things. And then as you were realizing, it wasn't that 1 year that did this, and how the mental, emotional influences in our lives and how our like personality is, and these things that people tell us like, oh, you're a perfectionist.
Mm.
People, my mom still tells me that, and I have to stop her like, no, I'm not, because it stops us from doing that. 80% is good enough, and it stops us from actually doing and making an impact, because we get stuck in wanting it to be perfect, and it's never going to be perfect. The people pleasing, and how those emotions and behaviors and thoughts and influences have a toll on our physical health. Maybe not right then,
Really.
but it's a price you just you're going to pay eventually, unless you get into that mindset and how we do that.
Mm.
But no, this is, go ahead, interject.
Yeah, even going back further, like where does perfectionism and people pleasing come from? It comes from a feeling of not feeling good enough. Well, that sets up in your body a feeling of not being safe. And that feeling of not being safe is stress in your body. Like you're not even aware of it. Like I wasn't aware. I would, if someone said you're not feeling safe, I would have thought that's ridiculous. But now I realize that behind it is that feeling of not being safe, and not being safe is stress. So I had probably my whole life an undercurrent of stress, and from everything I've learned now, and I've got a podcast, talked to a lot of different people, stress seems to be the underlying issue behind pretty much, I think, every chronic disease and illness, or yeah, like dis-ease, right? Dis-ease in your body, because we aren't at ease. We aren't at ease if we're stressed. And these things, it might, for me, I realized it probably started like when I was really little. And so these subconscious beliefs got put into my head, and so I had to learn like how to release them. A lot of different techniques out there for releasing them, and talk therapy isn't necessarily the best. I can tell you that. Talk therapy can kind of like rehash it and all that. So you don't really need to do that. You just need to do these different, there's all kinds of different release techniques. But and also another thing I came to realize was this whole, like, our energetic body, right? That we are quantum physics. So here I am coming back to my sciencey stuff. Quantum physics tells us that everything is energy, including us. everything around us. We're just like vibrating at a slow enough vibration that we seem like we're solid, right? But we are still energy. And so when we have things that aren't working in our body, it's energy not flowing. And so we can and emotions can stop that energy from flowing, right? So thoughts, emotions, feelings are actually vibrations in the body which stop the energy from flowing. And Ryan, you must see this in your work a lot. Like someone's like all tight and, and then you probably after a while start to see patterns of emotions or personality types that kind of have this going on. And even like if you think about metaphors in our language, right? The weight of the world on your shoulders. Now, was it any coincidence that my shoulders started to hurt? I felt like I had this tremendous weight on my shoulders. Um, and and then when the pain started, it was like my body is letting me down. And of course, that creates more pain, right? Because I'm I'm not, my body's just like trying to talk to me, trying to say, I need your help. Listen. And so instead of in the beginning, instead of feeling compassion and feeling understanding and trying to like really how can I help you, this vehicle that I'm going through life with, it was more like, okay, I got to fix this, there's something wrong, I got to fix it. And that's how I was going at it first. So it was totally changed afterwards, to come at it from a loving point of view, because love is that vibration. It's a all healing vibration in our body, and it's going to will heal everything. It's like a universal solvent, right? Can solve all the problems. So yeah, I think and so that's where I started pulling together the mind, body, and the breath, pulling it all together, because we are not just one of those. We are all of those. And quantum science, or this new leading edge science, and ancient spiritual practices are now merging together, right? That's all coming together. Yeah, we are we are a spirit having I love this one. We're a spiritual being having a spiritual experience in a human body.
Mhm. Yeah.
Totally different way of looking at us as people, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, so anyway, that's sort of pulling together a lot of the beliefs that I have now, and how I work with people too, that put all of this together, because can't treat one part.
Right. Exactly. And I love how, one, you talked about talk therapy, and I think and if you can explain that a little bit more, is that just kind of rehashing all the how we perceive negative situations? Is that what you're talking about with that?
Well, I think just therapy where you kind of, and maybe it depends on the therapist and how they approach it. And there's certainly a time and place for some of these things to get things off your chest, for example. There's another one of those metaphors, right?
Yeah.
But I think without sort of taking some kind of action, it's not effective just to
Right.
keep talking and talking and talking. And then
Right.
if the talking, because initially I started, like when I started looking back at childhood or events in my life where I had felt hurt, initially it's kind of like, they shouldn't have done that to me. It wasn't
Mhm.
right. It wasn't
Mhm.
fair. And those things keep you in that same state.
Yes.
So you have to have forgiveness,
Mhm.
right? If not for the other person, you do it for yourself. And then just that, they were doing the best they could with what they knew in their set of circumstances. And I responded with the best I knew with where I was at the time. And that's all we need to do. And I'm in a different place now, and I've got you. In fact, I keep this picture of myself when I was a little girl on my desk, and
Mhm.
I look at her and I say, I got you. I got you now. Right?
I'm
You don't have
totally on
to.
board with that. I love that. And I think the same thing, or I teach the same thing, is yes, we want to know what we're saying to ourselves, what these beliefs are, but we don't have to find out why that is. Like, to me, we don't have to keep talking about it and talking about it, because when we do, it you mentioned
Reinforces.
it reinforces it, makes those brain neural pathways wire together. And so now it makes even more unsafety, or being not feeling safe with the brain. And it doesn't
Mhm.
matter if it's a real threat or not, or a real stress. If your brain perceives it as that, And
And it
especially if we
will.
keep talking, yes, if we keep talking about it, it will. And then I always say, our body is like a reservoir of all these emotions that we have. And if there are these, I don't like negative or positive, but if they're not serving you, then a lot of times it leads to physical pain because that's so much easier to deal with. People think it's not, but your brain knows it's protecting you. It wants to protect you from these emotional and mental pains and stresses that it doesn't want to deal with. It's so much. If anybody's been through it, they understand like that repression. We repress those things, and then it shows up on our body. And then you and I mention it, and if they're not ready to hear it, sometimes they think we're crazy. Like, what are you talking about? I have back pain. It's not my childhood. And you mentioned it as well, as most of these beliefs and perceptions that we carry and how we bring them out into the world is from childhood, because that's when we're really impressionable. That's when
Yeah,
we're
most of them before the age of 7, right? We're actually in that in a hypnotic state, or the
Mhm.
equivalent of a hypnotic state. Like whatever comes in, we just like
Yes,
plant it in there.
yes. And just this has been amazing. And one thing I'll say as well is share as much quantum physics as you want, or that science melding the ancient wisdom, because our audience, my audience, loves that, because they want a full holistic spectrum of it, not just here, eat this one food and you'll be fine, or take
Yeah.
this one supplement. Like, I'm not about that. I know you are fully into like the natural solutions, which again, I love that. And I know you have which we'll talk about later, but the Becoming Pain-Free Summit coming up. So we're definitely going to tell people about that, which is, we're in the same world here. We want to help people break free from these shackles holding them back, both physically and mentally. And you had mentioned there's many different modalities and techniques to release from these like pain, but then also these subconscious beliefs, which is a lot of times leading to our pain. So can you go through any of those with me, with our listeners, and show them what to do?
Well, there's different tools. I like to start with not so much, okay, I got to go back and fix the past. Maybe we might need to get to that. But the first thing I like to do is think about like where you want to be, and how being that will make you feel. So in other words, take yourself to the place where you want to be. So what I used to do when I was in pain was I would imagine, one of the things I did was imagine that I was on a sailboat and like hoisting up those sails and, really strong on my arms, and then swinging like I don't have grandchildren yet, but like holding my grandchild up. And so like, how would I feel when I'm doing that? I would feel strong. I would feel a whole lot of love and fun and excitement. So really trying to get into those feelings of where you want to be, and feel them as if you have them now. And this comes right back to quantum physics, right? Because feelings, I mentioned earlier, are vibration in the body. So it's like, if we want to have that feeling in the future, we need to tune into that radio station, right? If we're off that station, if we're on the station of I'm feeling so crappy now and when's this going to be over, that's not on the station of being healthy and strong. So we got to tune into the station of healthy and strong as much as we can with these feelings, and the longer we can do that, the more we're going to become that. So that to me, it's about those feelings. So I like to start with that. And then if someone's having trouble with staying on that, well, then there's other tools. So I'm a certified facilitator for Dr. Sue Morter's Energy Codes. I don't know if you're familiar with that book, but it's fantastic. I love it because it's science and spirituality, and it's a systemized approach. And there's a number of tools in there, but other people use similar tools, just call them different names. And one is like, okay, noticing when you get triggered. So if there's a person, when they walk into the room, you like, you get that feeling. okay, you take it off that, because that is there to teach you. That anytime you're triggered, that is there to teach you. So you notice, okay, let's tune into my body. Where am I feeling that? Am I feeling it like here? My solar, like it doesn't really matter where, but just notice. And sometimes people are so in their heads and not in their body, they may not even be able to feel where it is, right? But with practice, you can get better. So notice where you feel it, and then imagine that you're like hugging it from the inside, like squeezing it. Maybe you can even touch it from the outside and just kind of say, like I said with my picture of my little girl, I got you now. I got you. I hear you. I'm noticing. I'm not going to forget you again, because that's telling us where the energy isn't flowing. So you notice it, you pay attention, and I think of it like maybe talk to it like you would talk to a best friend or a small child or a pet that you loved, right? So in that very loving, nurturing, compassionate way. And so then you're good for a while, right? You okay? It should subside. That feeling should subside because you're putting energy and attention to it. Then the next time you have a trigger, you do it again. So Dr. Sue calls this one take it to the body. So you're taking it to the body instead of like getting in your head about the story. I can't stand the way he does that, whatever. You go, oh, this is here to teach me where am I feeling this in my body? And then giving it your loving attention.
Yes. Oh, see, in these, like you said, these are tools, and they're common. And this is why I love having other people on, and they phrase it a little bit differently than I do, or maybe other guests do. And then it finally like clicks, because what you're saying here is very similar. For example, the first part of thinking about where you want to be and then feeling that.
Yeah.
So in my terms and my mindset training, that's imagining your outcome and
Yeah.
reviewing your direction. Like, what does it feel like when you finally get there? What is it? And feel that now.
Mm-hmm.
So that's, again, I love that. The second point about the trigger and, take it to your body. Again, very similar to learn your language
Yeah.
that I teach. And then also like the negative cycle that people go down is, what's that trigger? What does your body feel like? What is the trigger? What causes you to go down in that self-soothing cycle, and even into the descent where you're catastrophizing? And then the point I love the most, which hopefully everybody listening probably picked up on, like, oh, Dr. Ryan's going to definitely hit on this one. With practice, we get better, because it's not like you do it one time and you're good to go. You have this big aha, oh my gosh, that worked great, I never have to do this again. No, it's the simple and consistent practice, being patient with yourself with this. And when this trigger, because it will, when these thoughts come back, when these feelings come back, when these triggers come back, do it again.
Keep
It
doing it.
doesn't matter if you have to
Yeah.
do it 50 times a day, you do
Yeah.
it. And then it gets better and better, because you're retraining your brain into that awareness. And that's a big part of it, is the awareness of it.
Absolutely. And as we grow, I like to think like as we grow and evolve, new triggers will come up. Okay, I've mastered that one, then something else is coming up, because we are here to learn and grow, right? So it's not going to stop. Well, maybe for some people, I'm sure the Dalai Lama probably still has things that trigger him once in a while, right? But we do get better, but we'll notice, be more quick to notice when things come up. Less, we don't go down that road for quite so long of getting in the story about it all, and we'll catch ourselves sooner.
Mhm.
And you can use it for other things too, like you talked about habits earlier. So do you have a habit that you want to break? Like, maybe it's having that drink of wine every single evening. Like, okay, well, what's behind that? Notice what made you think about it and why you think you deserve it. Or, it's just interesting, right?
Mhm.
Be very inquisitive with yourself and how your mind works and what's behind it. And then could you could you satisfy that in another way? How else
Mhm.
could you satisfy that? Or what is it telling you that you need to learn? So
Hmm.
it's just so fun.
I hope everybody's, well, one, they can go back and watch this. And I highly suggest it because I can't write down as fast as all the amazing nuggets that you're giving here. But you're right. It's like those self-soothing mechanisms. Are they serving? They can be fine. Like that drink of wine could be fine if it's serving, like if, as long as where is that coming from a place of
Right.
love, a place of, you know what, you're trying to self-soothe because of a stressful day, or, and be your own guarantee is more than just about not using drugs and doctors and unnatural methods to do that procedures. It's about not depending on unhealthy or unserving things to help get you through the day or get you through your life, like
Right.
getting drunk, like sitting down and watch, binging Netflix, like all these things that we don't even equate with that, but those are very common ones, like even pornography, right?
Yeah.
Those are all
Or
self.
romance novels.
Yes, like getting lost, and those, like reading can absolutely be a serving activity, but how are you showing up into that activity? But this is
Exactly.
this is awesome. I mean, what I would love, because I know you are a master in breath work, and I would love to end on this because I want everybody to leave here just like uplifted and just heart centered. So I would love for you to take them through a heart centered approach to breathing. All right.
Mm.
And we talked about this before, and I want you to go through this with everybody because it's a simple thing that we can do to basically reconnect our mind and body to the life we're supposed to have, and the because breath is everything.
It is. Everything starts with the breath. Um, yeah, I want to share this heart focused breathing, and I want to say first, because I love the
Yes.
science, that there's tons of science behind this breath work. This breathing. I mean, it's been around for a long time, but specifically, the Heart Math Institute has done studies on on this breathing technique and how it's equated with health and longevity and uh, better cognitive thinking, so you make better decisions, higher test scores, better interrelationships, and so many things. And because our heart is, it has a huge electromagnetic field, which it actually can be measured like 10, 12 feet away from the body, just with the tools that we have now and equipment we have now. I mean, who knows how big it really is, right? Um, and so it's a very powerful energetic center in our body, and it's the ultimate healer. So if we can get our heart, so what happens when we do this breath, we go into heart coherence. It increases our heart rate variability, which is a measure of health and longevity. It increases that the heart brain connection, so through the vagus nerve. And so then our brain becomes coherent as well, and then we get all those good things happening with our brain. We go into the parasympathetic state. You know what's funny, when we're in the sympathetic state, our prefrontal cortex actually shrinks. That's where we make our decisions, right? It actually shrinks. So we get smarter doing this kind of breath too. So lots of great benefits. So I'm just going to lead you through a really quick one, about 3 or 4 minutes. I'll try to keep it to 3 or 4 minutes.
Perfect. No,
So
do it.
let's,
If it takes
wherever
5 minutes, if it gives us better cognition and better thinking and better health, heck yeah, let's do it.
Alrighty. So get comfortable wherever you are. If you're sitting, or you can lie down if you want to. Obviously, if you're driving a car, pause this and do this later. So just let your feet touch the floor and just rest your hands on your lap. You can have them palms down or palms up, whatever's comfortable for you. And just gently close your eyes. And I'd like for you to breathe in and out through the nose. And just notice your breath. Maybe slowing down the breath a little bit. And I'd like you to imagine that as you breathe in, that air is filling up your heart space. in the area around your heart. And with every breath, it gets a little bit bigger. If it helps you, you can even put one hand in your heart area in the middle of your chest. Now I'd like you to think about a time or a place, a situation or a person or a pet, but a time when you felt love. So bring this to mind now. It could be a person, a pet, an event, or a place where you felt loving and peaceful. Bring it to mind and see if you can notice any colors, little details. Maybe what do you hear? Maybe you might smell or taste something. Just get this picture really vivid in your mind. This loving, loving person or place or event. And now I'd like you to notice that feeling of love. Notice that you're feeling that feeling of love in your heart. Just really focus on this feeling as you breathe, feeling that loving feeling in your heart. And every time you inhale, it gets a little bit bigger. And then next inhale, it doubles in size. And now let it completely fill your entire body. And the next time you inhale, it gets even bigger than your body, outside your body. This beautiful feeling of love feels so good. Now let it even fill up the room that you're in. It's so big, this feeling of love. And now just call all that love back to your heart. Call it right back into your heart and say, this is for me. Feel that in your heart for just another breath or two. Now, when you're ready, you can slowly and gently open your eyes. Doesn't that feel good?
Breathing always feels good, but then when you combine it with the feeling part of it, yes. And you mentioned something earlier in our talk. Sometimes we're just so distracted that we can't even feel, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like our lives are just so stressed and it's everything going on and busy, busy, busy and mile a minute that we lose touch with the feeling part of it. And it's hard for people to feel it unless it's like something that's sad or
Yeah,
negative in their life. So that,
yeah.
yes.
And
Yeah,
you
that
know,
was 5 minutes. That how easy is that and simple is that?
well, I know we like really, I led you through it, but you generated that feeling, right?
Mhm.
And if you could generate that feeling now, you can generate that feeling anytime.
Mhm.
We don't
Yeah.
need someone else to generate love for us. Like even this thing that you imagine from the past, that's in the past. But the feeling you generated was now, right?
Yeah.
You could even do this for a future feeling, like we were talking about before. Like if you wanted this future experience of love, what would that feel like? Right?
Yes.
So we can generate this anytime. And of course, it's a loving feeling. And the more you do it, the better you get at it. And that you want to be able to like generate it like that, right? Whenever you feel crappy, okay, just come back. Oh, okay, try to get that love feeling. You're teaching your body how to feel it.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And yeah, to be able to call on it whenever you want. So we've always got it available to us. That's what's so nice. We're like, how powerful are we?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. I lose sight of that. And, it's something that you mentioned. It's not about, like having all these negative emotions at zero all the time. It's being able to identify when they're there, being aware when they're easier. And the more we practice that, and then it's also not allowing it if we call it like ego 911, for example,
Yeah.
where you don't want to wait till you do something like this heart focused breathing or one of these tools to take you from, like, you're already let's say you're on a path to 100. So 0 to 100. So 100 is where you're just like catastrophizing. Nothing's ever going to be great. You're saying all these self-limiting things, like just the worst of the worst that you feel like it can be. And you're in the pit. You're experiencing it. You're not just observing it. So these types of techniques and doing them consistently, regularly, it allows us to take it from, okay, I'm at a 50 now. If I don't watch out, it's going to get to 100, and keep lowering that. Like sometimes I rate what this ego is
Yeah, it's a
every
great
morning.
idea.
In the morning, I'm like, okay, I'm at a 15 right now. So
Yeah.
not bad, but let's, lower it even more if I can by journaling or the techniques that I do. But I just wanted to add that part in there. And this was, as obviously probably from how I'm speaking, it's feel more at peace just even after that 5 minutes.
Yeah, me
So
too.
yes. So what I'd love, I mean, for the listener, for my BYOGers, leave comments below how you felt about this. This has been one of my favorites. I say that every time, but it's true because we keep evolving, and man, just amazing. We're on very much the same frequency and wavelength, Jane.
Yeah.
And let me know, or let everybody know how they can find you and how they can interact with you.
Well, my website is janehoganhealth.com. And then I'm on Instagram. I got a YouTube channel, Facebook. So they could just look up Jane Hogan Health
Yeah.
is the easiest way to just search for me. So yeah, and I got a podcast, Wellness by Design, which
Yes.
is I just love doing. I love talking to people. I love sharing these tools. I mean, I've just shared a couple of my tools, but there's so many people who have great tools out there. And I figure the more I share, the more people will have more tools in their toolbox to help them. And, different things resonate with different people, right?
Right.
So, yeah.
Right. And I mentioned earlier when we were talking that you do have your summits coming up, Becoming Pain Free. So definitely check that out. I'll leave the links for that below. But no, this has been so amazing and enlightening, and just set me up for my day. I love it.
Thank you so much for having me, Ryan. I'm really appreciate this opportunity to speak with your group.
All right. Thank you so much, Jane. We'll talk soon.
Okay, bye.